Each week, American History TV's American Artifacts takes viewers into archives, museums, and historic sites from around the country. Located 18 blocks from the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C.'s Congressional Cemetery is the final resting place of dozens of members of Congress, as well as numerous government officials and other prominent Americans. American History TV toured the grounds with Congressional Cemetery Program Director Rebecca Roberts.
Welcome to Historic Congressional Cemetery. When the cemetery was founded in 1807, Washington was a really new town. Old Town Alexandria existed and Georgetown existed, but the city itself had nothing. It had no infrastructure, it had no buildings, and it had no place to bury its dead. And the Navy Yard and the Congress were really sort of the economic engine. So this part of the city, Capitol Hill, was kind of the center of the new growth. And Christ Church, Capitol Hill, an Episcopal parish a few blocks away, members of the vestry there bought some land here in order to establish a burial ground for their church. That was early in 1807. Almost immediately, a member of Congress, Uriah Tracy of Connecticut, died. This is really before embalming was common. There wasn't really a railroad to send him back to Connecticut to bury him at home. And it was clear there needed to be a place to bury him here in Washington. So this new Christ Church burying ground was the chosen place. And Congress bought up a bunch of plots specifically for the purpose of burying members of Congress who died in office. And Benjamin Henry Latrobe, who was one of the architects of the Capitol building, designed this marker, this cube-shaped classical marker, in order to mark congressional graves. This one, for instance, is John Quincy Adams. He is not buried here. He is buried in Massachusetts. But when he died, he was a member of Congress. He went into Congress after he was president. And so from about 1807 to about 1877, if you died in office, you got one of these markers with your name on it here in Congressional Cemetery, whether you were buried under it or not. You'll see some, names from the founding of the country through here. Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun. Their cenotaphs are up here, and they loathed each other in life, but they're together in eternity. So there's about 171 of them. 59 of them have bodies under them. We call them cenotaphs, which means empty tomb, but they are not in fact all empty. The tradition of putting a cenotaph in Congressional Cemetery for a member who died in office stopped in the 1870s, in part because it had become increasingly common to send a body home for burial. During the Civil War, embalming became much more common, the infrastructure improved, and so fewer and fewer members were actually buried here. Also, it was expensive. These are great big monuments, and the idea of keeping them sort of in perpetuity going for every member of Congress who died in office was a pretty big appropriation. But also the tradition was discontinued because members of Congress thought they were ugly. George Frisbee Hoar of Massachusetts is quoted as saying during the debate about the appropriations, the idea of being buried under one of those brings a new horror to death. So the tradition stopped. There is one exception, which is this one up here. So this is the one cenotaph that has been installed here at the cemetery since 1877. It was installed in 1981, obviously made to look exactly like the historic ones. Congressman Nick Begich of Alaska is on this side. Congressman Hale Boggs of Louisiana is on this side. During the 1972 campaign, when Hale Boggs was majority leader, he was up in Alaska campaigning for Congressman Begich. And they were in a small plane that crashed somewhere in the mountains or over the ocean. Nothing was ever found, so no one knows exactly where it crashed. So there was nothing to bury of either men. So the tradition of having an empty tomb for members of Congress who had died in office was revived just for them. And Thomas Hale Boggs was actually my grandfather. So I grew up coming here and placing flowers on the stone, and it's the only marker we have for him.
You can watch American Artifacts and other American History TV programs anytime by visiting our website, cspan.org/history.